any type of education at any level, whether you're in a nursery school or whether you're in a university, cannot be transactional. This is all about building relationships, understanding people, and having a really good holistic view to educate, to learn, and to teach actually means. And we need to ensure that we're really, really good and we're really clever at making that, interface between technology and the human as effective and as appropriate and as ethical as it should be and can be.
Hi everyone, welcome to Wisdom for Exploits. I am your host, Bola Amore. Welcome to today's thought-provoking conversation on Beyond the Degree, Building Compassionate Leaders in a Selfie Generation. In a world where self-promotion and instant gratification dominate the digital landscape, how do we cultivate leaders who prioritize empathy, kindness, and community over self-interest? Today, we will explore how education, self-awareness, and personal growth can shape a new leader that value connection and collaboration just as much as achievement. My amazing guest is Professor Claire Taylor. She is a Vice Chancellor and CEO of Plymouth Merchant University. We will explore together how to encourage the selfie generation to look beyond themselves and become pioneers driven by compassion, humility, and a genuine desire to improve the world. Before we hear from my guest, do not forget to subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to be notified whenever we upload new videos. Professor Claire, please tell us about yourself.
Morning, and thanks so much for inviting me onto the show. And hello to everybody who's kind of tuning in and listening. Yeah, so I'm Professor Claire Taylor. I'm the Vice Chancellor and Chief Executive Officer at Plymouth Marjon University. I've been at the university for just over 2 years now, and I've worked in another 3 or so universities across the UK, and previously was actually a teacher in primary schools in my first career for the first 10 years after I left university. But in terms of what I'm doing now, my university is based in the city of Plymouth, but we actually work with other academic partners across the UK and globally. We focus on public services, professional and community-facing roles. We have a lot of education provision, teacher education, nursing and allied health provision, sport provision, and those community-facing roles such as youth and community. So our university is all about encouraging people to look at where they are going to be of service, if you like, in the public sector and across the community. We have a couple of thousand students here in Plymouth, but we also have around 3,000 students working with academic partners. So it's a Marjon qualification, but delivered elsewhere in London, in Bristol, in Birmingham, and in some other parts of the UK. And we also have partnerships across the world in Sri Lanka, in Vietnam, in the Middle East, and in Europe. So we have quite a big reach when you add all that up.
Wow. Your university have so many hats, isn't it? They are all over the place. Thank you so much, Professor. That's wonderful. And thank you so much for honoring this call. I'm so grateful. Professor Claire, could you share the reason behind your decision to pursue an academic career?
Yeah, thank you. As I said, I started my working life actually in teaching, in primary school teaching. And then an opportunity came up, as these things often do. I wasn't particularly looking for an opportunity to go into teacher education, so teacher training. And I started to work at a local higher education institute as a lecturer and as a teacher trainer. And I enjoyed that, and ended up then doing a doctorate. I did my PhD on the job, and then moved into broader leadership roles across a number of different universities. But really, what was at the heart of that decision was an absolute commitment to education. I think of myself as an educationalist. Wow. Education is my background. It's my bread and butter. I studied music and education at university, and then I've taught all sorts of ages of children, young people, adults, all shapes and sizes across the past 35 years or so now, I would say, I've been involved in education. So with all these things, it was about an opportunity that came up. Obviously, I prayed about that. I sought God's wisdom on that and thought, well, I'm going to give it a go. And here I am, many, many years later, leading a university.
Wonderful. Wow. That's good. I like career women.
Well, there aren't so many female vice chancellors leading UK universities as well. I think it's probably less than a third of leaders of universities are women. So there is still an issue there around equity, perhaps. But I do try to spend time as well encouraging and mentoring other women in their careers, and helping to build confidence around the fact that you can do this. It is possible.
That's true. That's true. Yes, we can do all things through Christ Jesus. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Let me just go with this first question to you.
Yeah.
In an increasingly virtual academic environment, what innovative approach are you using to foster authentic human connection?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm just going to kind of caveat it a little bit, because you're absolutely right. We are operating in a digital world.
Sure.
And a digital world across education, but also increasingly through the workplace as well. And even now in this situation, we're having a conversation using technology and connecting virtually. So we're kind of embodying that practice as well, aren't we?
Yeah.
And I think the key thing in all of this is to ensure that as human beings, as citizens of our planet, we stay grounded in that really important need for human connection. Nothing is going to ever get in the way of people needing to be with fellow people. And we see that in terms of, Jesus modeled that, didn't he, as well, in terms of the time he spent with people and the time he spent alone as well, praying, but spent a lot of time eating with people, conversing with people. And I think what we try to do here at the university is to ensure that we really emphasize the importance of humanity. That's one of our values. We actually have 4 values: humanity, ambition, independence, and curiosity. But humanity is often at the top of the list. That need to support human connection. And yes, we can do that virtually in the digital world. But I think it would be a sad state of affairs if we found out that people were never, ever communicating or connecting with people actually in the flesh, as it were. I think the same goes for the workplace. Many of our courses involve a lot of practical work-based experience. Our nurses are in placements in the local hospital or across healthcare providers in the region. Our teacher training students are in schools. They'll be in schools currently. Other students are getting some work-based experience. And again, that's about being able to work with people, work within teams, handle people, practice empathy. All of those really important human qualities. But as well, we ensure that our graduates have really good digital skills, because that is the future. That's not going to go away. So it is that kind of balance. and the fact that digital is never ever going to replace that empathic human connection need, which is built into our DNA. We're wired for that, aren't we?
That's good, because I know a lot of people are so scared now that everything is going digital. Are we going to get our job back? Our job is going away, and we have to do things. I mean, the robots have to do everything now. So even including in the healthcare sector as well.
Yeah, you're right, and I think, but I think the nature of work is changing, and I don't think that this is a case that there's never going to be a need for human beings to be employed into work. But it may be different type of work going forwards. It will be different type of work, and we need to ensure that we're really, really good and we're really clever at making that interface between technology and digital and the human as effective and as appropriate and as ethical as it should be and can be.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we're looking at global citizenship and leadership impact now. How are UK universities preparing students to lead in a world facing climate changes or change, inequality, and geopolitical instability?
Yeah, wow. They're big questions, aren't they? I mean, and it's tough out there, isn't it? It's a really difficult, challenging world. The news stories they're not very cheery a lot of the time, are they?
Yeah.
So, I've always firmly believed that any type of education at any level, whether you're in a nursery school or whether you're in a university, cannot be transactional. This is all about building relationships, understanding people, and having a really good holistic view of what to educate, to learn, and to teach actually means. This isn't just about imparting knowledge in a kind of transactional utilitarian way, because as we've just said, you can do that through a Google search or an AI bot or whatever it might be. It's about developing relationship.
Sure.
I remember when I was teaching in primary schools, and I often had classes of sort of 8-9-year-olds. And, sometimes behavior was a bit tricky, and you'd have to kind of deal with some tricky situations with these, kids who probably didn't want to be in school. But actually, it was about me understanding, well, what's going on for them? What has happened in terms of, in the family, what's kind of triggered some poor behavior. And in terms of, developing, again, that empathy, that self-awareness, that is all part of education. That then flows through as children and young people grow up into actually developing great habits that mean they can be really good citizens and bother to care about those bigger subjects that you talk about. And everyone will have a different focus, won't they, and a different passion. But what we try to do at university is to create the space for people to explore who they are, what they want to be, where the opportunities could be, and how they can contribute, beyond their actual subject interest or their job. Because at the end of the day, I want my students to go and be, great parts of their families, their communities, to give back to that, and to kind of feel a sense of responsibility in terms of being part of something bigger. And I think a lot of that kind of sense of purpose, certainly for us here at Marjon, comes from the fact that our foundations are actually Church of England foundations. They are church foundations, and I perhaps should have said that at the beginning. Our founders were Church of England clerics, ministers back in the Victorian times in the 1840s, and that kind of values based of dignity for human beings and the planet, coming through that faith-based perspective, has kind of stayed as a really important part of our DNA, if you like, going forward. So we try to ensure that kind of influences and informs how we do that.
Wonderful. That's a good one. So, what does compassionate leadership look like in the context of global citizenship and cross-cultural engagement?
These are big questions, aren't they?
Yeah, because you're a professor, you can eat
yeah, that's great.
the head.
Well, for me, I have a rule of thumb that around the 3 C's, and it's helpful because also because I'm Professor Claire Taylor. Maybe it's 4 C's if you include Claire as well. But the 3 C's, I think that help in terms of framing compassionate leadership are around care, courage, and collaboration. So I try to apply those 3 things, and I try to encourage my staff team and actually students as well to think about those things. So firstly, care. Kindness and care is so important and so underrated. And it's very, very basic, isn't it, in terms of how we interact with each other. But I would say that unless we have care for ourselves, then we cannot have care for other people. True. So there is something here about self-care, and I don't think that's a selfish thing. I think it's about looking after ourselves so that we can then be our best for other people. So that's the first thing, care. Courage is all about, for me, in leadership, decision-making. Courage to make decisions, even when they may not be easy ones to make, even when people may be affected, and I have to make decisions all the time, because I lead an institution that has 300-400 employees. People are at the heart of what we do. Sometimes you have to make tricky decisions, but a courageous decision rather than no decision. The worst thing is if there's a vacuum and no decision making is happening. But you can only make courageous and maybe difficult decisions if you've built those relationships with people and people know where you're coming from. Which goes back to the relational aspect of education as well.
It's true.
And then collaboration, we can only achieve things or great things if we work together.
True.
I talk to people about the power of collective wisdom. Several minds are greater than one mind. Even in universities, there is no one professor who's got all the answers. And we need to be brave, I think, as well at listening to, different voices, different thinking, getting some diversity into our thinking, even, exposing ourselves to perhaps quite divergent or difficult challenge or thinking. Otherwise, we operate in a what I would call an echo chamber. We're just kind of in our own little cocoon, if you like, and that can become quite unreal. So I think, those 3 things all contribute to that compassionate leadership piece. And compassionate leadership doesn't mean being soft. There has to be, moments where you have to be very, very clear, often quite hard sometimes, particularly around that courageous decision making. But my responsibility is to, my organisation as a whole, and as much as possible to look after everybody in the whole community who is part of that.
Well, you mentioned collective wisdom, which is a very good one. Yeah. There are some people you've come across, they just want to do things by themselves. They don't want to relate to other people. If you have such people in your, let me say, in your team, how will you deal with such people?
Yeah.
Person?
Yeah, great question. You're right. Yeah, there'll be some people who will just go their own way. And once they're off, that's it. I found it really important across the university, and as I say, we have around 350 members of staff here at the moment, to ensure that everybody knows where they fit in with the bigger picture. Why are we here? We have people in all sorts of different roles. We have academic roles here, but we also have professional services roles. I have an estates team, I have a catering team, I have people who work on the reception desk, I have folk who are running our library, I have folk who are looking after student support and providing mental health and counselling services. So, if I'm one of our amazing estates team, whose job it is to keep the grounds really, really neat and tidy and everything else, what's my role in terms of the bigger picture of the organization? I mean, yes, it is to make sure that the grass is cut or whatever it might be, but actually that's our learning environment, and they are contributing to the a positive learning environment for our students so that they can be successful in their studies and then move on to whatever they're going to do as graduates. So spending time with people, helping them to see and appreciate and feel proud of the part that they're playing in terms of that much, much bigger picture and purpose is really, really important. And most of the time, if time is spent doing that, people get, okay, right, well, I know why I need to do this now, and I know I need to connect in with that team and that person because they're all part of the same kind of end goal.
Yeah.
Having said that, there may always be a minority who may choose to go their own way. And, to be honest, someone may be having a conversation that says, okay, well, do you want to be part of this bigger thing now? Or maybe, there's a different opportunity for you somewhere else. It is about fit with the organization as well, which is really important.
Well done. Thank you. Oh, yeah, we're moving on. How do you encourage students to move from passive awareness to active involvement in social justice and sustainability?
Yeah, great question. And, we see with many of our students an incredible journey that they go on when they come to university. And it won't just be our university, but it'll be many, many universities up and down the land are genuinely transformative for students. We have, I'm going to give you a really good example, actually, of a student. So this student is called Liam. If he sees this, on YouTube, he won't mind me talking about this because
that's fine.
He knows I share his story quite a lot. He's actually left us now, but he joined Marjon University probably 4 or 5 years ago. He came to us from a tiny fishing village at the very end of the southwest part of the UK in Cornwall, right on the coast. Very remote, beautiful place, but rural and coastal. And he came to Plymouth Marjon because he wanted to do PE teaching, so education, PE teaching, and sport. And we were the nearest place that he could do that, even though we're actually about 2 hours away, probably from his home village. So he came to us having not really done much outside of the locality before, and got really involved in our sports teams, which built his confidence. And he also got involved in our students' union, which helped him to get involved in clubs and societies and develop a little bit more of an interest in political issues and community issues and those sorts of things. He then graduated, got a really good degree, and then he became our Students' Union president, which meant he was heading up that work that he got involved in, which was a big step. And in that role, he really flourished because it turned out that he was really good at public speaking, but he never really had an opportunity to do it before. But because the Student Union gave him a little bit more of a political platform, he really, really flourished in that situation. So it was about finding the right opportunity for him to kind of step into. The first time he went to London to visit was when we sent him on a course for student union governors. And that was the first time he'd ever been to our capital city. He had a fantastic year as student union president. And last year he left us and he is now teaching English as a foreign language in China.
Wonderful.
And for him to go halfway around the world to pick up that opportunity is absolutely fantastic. I don't believe he would have done that if he hadn't had that kind of gradual staged approach in terms of some of the opportunities he was able to take when he was with us. And no doubt he will come back having had that global experience whether he comes back to the Southwest or works elsewhere in the UK, or maybe stays global, I don't know. But he will bring a really rich understanding in terms of that intercultural piece, as you say, confidence, because he's really stepped out of his comfort zone and pushed himself. And I hope that university, provides an environment for other individuals to do that, just pushing ourselves a little bit more just to take that next step.
That's a very good one. But Professor, what about people when let me put it this way. I've come across some students, when they've come out of secondary school, finished their A level, and they said to them, I don't think I'm good enough, to go to university. I think university workload, when they look at what they did in A level, the workload is quite more, and they're so scared about going to university. So how do we encourage such people? And now they have a bigger picture in their, they said, okay, one day I want to be this. And I've had some students now say, you know what, I don't have to go to university to become what I need to become. Yes, we know there are other short courses out there they can do. But there are still some courses whereby you still have to go through that part, that university part to go. How will you advise such students? Because I don't want to move into another thing, because I'm coming to that question about the money aspect. Yeah. So how will you, with this wonderful story now, this young man now, that because he started little and now building gradually till you get to, now he's in China teaching English. So how do we encourage such students, that what you don't think about what you're thinking now, you're good, just go for it?
I think it is about taking things a step at a time, but I think it is also about, if anyone is thinking about university, it's really important to think about what type of learning environment will suit them. So, for example, here in Plymouth, there are actually 3 universities in the city of Plymouth. So we are one of 3. The University of Plymouth, which is down the road from us, is bigger than us. It's a slightly more dispersed campus, slightly different facilities, slightly different subject offer. And it would be quite a different experience for someone to be in perhaps a larger environment with more people. We also have a very specialist arts university in Plymouth, again, very successful. Smaller than we are and the University of Plymouth, but it gives that very specialist environment. So that might suit people who are looking at that kind of art specialism, wanted very hands-on experience in a kind of focused environment. We really emphasize here at Marjon student support, and we won't take anyone on if we're not convinced that we can support a student. So, for example, we have a relatively high proportion of students who choose to disclose a disability, whether that's an additional learning need or a physical disability need, or perhaps some extra support with their studies. And if we think we can support that, then we will do it. I think it's also important to remember that, going through a university degree is a journey, and there are different stages to it. And you develop as you go through that journey. You don't know that when you start.
Yes, true.
Kind of when you look back, you will kind of see that development. So certainly here at Marjon, we have a very careful program of support, particularly at those points of transition. So supporting people as they come into university, supporting students as they perhaps consider doing their first work placement, because all of our students will be going into placements even during their first year sometimes. Supporting a student as they move from the first year into the second year, or the second year into the third year. So we're not kind of just saying, great, hello, here you go, off you go. It's actually it's checking in, there is support, students know where to go if they're not clear about something. We try to be really smart in terms of the information that is given. We try to be really smart around, flexibility when we can be, because the other challenge that a lot of our students have is that they are working put themselves through university. That comes onto the money question in a moment, which we'll do. So we try to, support our students to work around that, so it's as accessible as possible. But my encouragement to people who are thinking about university is, go and visit some universities, talk to staff, but most importantly, talk to students. So we just actually had an open day here last week, and we have lots of student ambassadors around. So students who are studying here who are available to take students around, talk to students, and they tell them how it is. They tell them what it's like. And that's the information that you need to kind of get, isn't it?
I remember when, Professor, I remember one time we went to a college to do some it's a higher education, but we study inside the college. There's some higher education like that you have to do your course in the college. So then we had that, okay, I think the college is not going to accommodate the higher education anymore.
Yeah.
Then, and I think we have 4 students left. So we start going around opening day looking for university, to transfer our career into it. And I remember a guy that opened, they went to this particular university. I don't want to mention them. And the guy said to us, so he was taking us around, and the guy was whispering to our ear, he said, I hope you guys are not going to come to this university because you're going to regret it.
Right, okay. Interesting.
I was like, this guy, the university put you here to put them in, to show us around, and you are pulling them down. I said, that is not nice. He said, if we come, we're going to regret it. That, what, I won't come here. And he's part of the student. They said they should be taking us around, Anyway, that's a good one. Can you share an example of a student-led initiative that embodies leadership with art and impacts?
Yeah, that's a great question. So certainly the student body here at Marjon, and I mentioned the Students' Union, who are very active in terms of, picking up on key issues. The couple of things that they're really passionate and active around at the moment is support for student mental health. And also the second issue is tackling gender-based violence. Which has been there's been quite a coordinated campaign actually in Plymouth across the 3 universities, which is really good, a really good example of students and staff actually coming together with other voluntary organisations and the council, to actually have some campaigns against gender-based violence and to provide support and help where it's needed. So that's a good example. Going back to the mental health support, you're aware, and I'm sure people watching this are aware that generally for the young adult generation, mental health challenges have clearly escalated, and I think there are various reasons for that. I think we still talk about the effects of the COVID pandemic, but we also talk about the effects actually of social media. And the fact that there's a lot of information out there about you, and there's a lot of facilities for you to kind of compare yourself to others and feel that you might be inadequate in some way or whatever it might be. But there's also, now we know, because there's a much better understanding of complex mental health conditions, I think it's becoming easier to identify and disclose and share those conditions as well, which I think is a healthy thing. So I think in the past, if you go back, 50 years or something, it wasn't something that people talked about, and we were managing to kind of destigmatize mental health and be much more open about the support that people need. So we work very closely with our Students' Union to ensure that there are safe spaces on campus for people to talk to people if they need to, or to escape to if they need to. So, and that's all jointly organised with our Students' Union. We have a chaplaincy, a Christian chaplaincy on campus, and they have some different facilities in there as well that some people use. So we have in there a quiet room. Sometimes people just need to go to one side. We have 2 dogs in our chaplaincy who are part of the chaplaincy team, which sometimes, people just want to take the dog for a walk, and that's, great in the middle of the day.
Really?
And then we thought, just to do something different. And of course, prayer support is really, really important as well. And that's on offer to whoever would like it. But sometimes it's just a chat. So the Students' Union currently, I'm just trying to think of their current campaigns. They're certainly doing some work around mental health. They are plugged into that gender-based violence piece, as I said, as well. And also we have links, some specific links with some organisations and charities, and we try to support those when we can.
That's a good one. Well done. So my next question, university struggles with budget cuts. Higher energy price, inflation, lower tuition what? To survive financially. Many institutions are reducing courses, offering, combining departments, or disposing of properties.
Yeah.
How can university maintain financial stability while providing avoidable education?
Yeah. This is the biggest question that the higher education sector in the UK is asking itself at the moment. And, universities and stories about universities are rarely out of the news at the moment. You don't need to dig too far to find an example of a university that has had to make some staffing cuts or shut a campus or make some difficult decisions around, course offering. So here at Marjon, this is our approach, and it may be different elsewhere, but our approach has been to be really, really absolutely clear about our purpose and what we are and what we are not. And when I arrived here 2.5 years ago, I remember talking to the staff body and saying, we need to develop a new strategy and a new approach. And I said, but the key thing about having a great strategy, in my view, for any business or any organisation, is not about thinking about what's in the strategy, because I could give you a list today of 100 and 200 or thousands of things that I'd like to have in my strategy. The trick is being really clear about what is not in it and what you're not going to do. So that clarity of purpose for us has been really helpful in terms of shaping decisions around our curriculum, around where we spend our money, where we invest, where we don't invest. We have a very clear mission and purpose, which is broad, but focused as well, because our purpose is to tackle social inequity. So we work with, disadvantaged students. We work in areas and places where there is a need. And we've focused our curriculum around those public services, professional and community facing roles. That's where we think the need is in the places where we work. And that has meant that we've stopped doing a little bit of stuff that didn't fit in with our core purpose. I think it's really important as well to look at where we can collaborate and partner where at all possible. Comes back to my piece before around collaboration. So we have really good partnerships with local businesses and employers and organisations. So, for example, we're actually right next door to a very large general teaching hospital. And, we work closely with them in terms of what we're providing around nursing and healthcare, but also even sharing some space. They actually do a little bit of work on our site, which means that they are, potentially renting some property from us, delivering work on our site. It's a good placement opportunity for our students as well. We have a great collaboration with Argyle Football Club in Plymouth, because of our sports students. So again, our students are getting great practical experience, and Argyle are getting some of the input that they need as well. So we need to be quite clever around, how we use resources, but also how we partner to make sure that we are, getting more impact really out of what we have. Kind of scaling up through our partnerships so that our resources are going as far as possible. But I would say that I think the current government in the UK will be looking for universities to be even clearer about what their purpose is. What are you known for? What are your kind of specialist areas, if you like,
Exactly.
rather than overlapping too much with other providers.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. I want to ask this question for people. I know a lot of people are going for their PhD now. And a lot of people are now doing PhD. That's really good. So can you share an example of how research and teaching has directly impacted society or solved a real world problem?
Yes. Okay. I can give you a very recent example, which involved me being at the Houses of Parliament 2 weeks ago with one of our researchers who is called Professor Tanya Ovenden Hope. She is a professor of education and is very interested in place and social inequity in certain places. And she has done a lot of research looking at rural areas across the UK and coastal areas as well. And she actually lives in Cornwall, so she's got Cornwall and Devon on her doorstep as a very, very good example. And she has developed a concept called educational isolation, which combines the idea of geographical challenges of isolation around transport, actually with things like cultural isolation. So this goes back to the point we talked about earlier around education trying to be a kind of holistic activity. Being in a school or being in a university is not just about dealing with knowledge, it's actually a broader cultural piece as well. So she has actually challenged the government on their measures for measuring deprivation. There's a measure called the Index of Multiple Deprivation, which some people may have heard of, which the government uses to identify some of the poorest places across the UK and often allocates funding according to that. But those metrics are very focused on urban areas rather than rural and coastal areas, because in rural and coastal areas, often populations are much more dispersed, which brings additional challenges. So we were there at the House of Parliament with some MPs a few weeks ago, actually saying, actually this report needs to be shared more widely because this can actually affect funding allocations to certain regions across the UK. It certainly affected Cornwall. It could affect places like Kent and Lincolnshire, which are other rural areas. And that means it's unfair for people. So that is turning quite a few heads. We've had quite a lot of contact from a whole range of MPs now. Going forwards, our hope is that will really start to influence some of that funding decision making. And that's the sort of work that we're interested in. At another level, we run community clinics here at Marjon. So our students who are studying some of our health courses actually practice in a supervised way on some community patients here on staff, and that is supervised by clinical and academic staff. And again, we research the impact of that in terms of the well-being of those patients coming in. And there's an interesting study that's been done as well around, you've heard about rehabilitation post-operation, for example. We've been doing some work around prehabilitation, prehab. So this is around ensuring that patients who may be about to go through very invasive surgery, perhaps cancer treatment or chemotherapy or something else, quite traumatic, are actually supported with their fitness and their diet and actually their mental health attitude to be ready for that. As a prehab, they then go through the procedure and then obviously they'll go into rehab. And again, that's a relatively new concept that is being trialed and researched, and I think is enabling people to be much more ready for surgery or treatment, which means they recover quicker afterwards, hopefully healthier sooner through the rehab process.
Wow, that's a good one. That's a good one. Thank you for sharing that. Before my next question, let's do this one. I know we're talking about, we're still in the line of financial and all those stuff. So how can university remain financially viable while keeping education accessible? We know a lot of people want to come to uni, especially international students. We can see the drop in international students recently.
Yeah.
And I was told, or I listened to on the news, that there is an international student that always boosts the university, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the question is, that's the question. How can university remain financially viable while keeping education accessible?
Yeah. I think it comes back to being really clear about, what you want to achieve as a university. And as I said, we've spent a lot of time being really clear about our purpose. We're not trying to do too much, which means we can kind of focus our resources. And we have to, make really good decisions and do really good planning around, what's coming down the line. This is a significant business that we are running, and we're one of the smaller universities. So there are some universities that have a turnover of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds. So their boards of directors and boards of governors have to manage that, well, as you would manage a big complex company. But also we have a responsibility, you're quite right, to stay absolutely focused on, what are we here for? Because universities are often not only companies, but they're also charities, and we are. So we have charitable objects around delivering education. So we're not here to make a profit, but we are here to ensure that what we do is, as you've said, accessible, enables students to succeed so they can then move on in terms of their career ambitions and prospects. But it does come down to, good management, understanding that, yes, we're an educational institution, but we're also a commercial business, and kind of trying to bring those things together and manage it well, but with a bit of a commercial head on. I have to say, in my role here as Vice Chancellor, my own personal and professional financial and commercial literacy has gone up through the roof. I'm an education professor. That's my background, but I have to understand and be all over the finances, the commerce, the accounts, and to be able to advise my board accordingly. So it's sometimes feels a bit of a job of two halves, but I've got a very good team, and that's why having an amazing finance director in particular is really, really important, who understands that his purpose is not to make money, but to ensure that our students succeed.
That's a good one. So you are the Joseph in the Bible with coat of many colors.
That's right. Yeah.
So anyway, this is a good one. And how do you advise students that are really struggling financially with their what's they call it again? Is it bursary they call it? Or how will you advise them? Because some students, when they get into uni, the first year they spend as if and now they don't have money again, they start struggling. And some, based on the course they're studying, is quite heavy. And getting a job is another thing, because to balance the two. So what advice will you give to such students, struggling financially?
The balance is really hard. I think currently well over 80% of our students at my university are holding down a job as well as studying full time. And because a lot of our students are also on professional placements, whether it's teaching or nursing or other placements, they've kind of got three things to juggle. They've got their studies, they've got their work, part-time work, and they've got their work experience and their placements. We also have other students who are adult learners, and they'll have families to look after as well. So for some of our students, it's really, really, really complex. So we try to be as flexible as we can around, within reason, but in terms of how the curriculum can be accessed. That's where technology can be really good, in terms of making sure there are recordings of sessions or good resources available if people need to catch up. when people are thinking about applying to university, even at open days before they've even come here, we have our financial advisors ready to talk to people so that people understand, this is what the cost is, this is what you might need to live on, this is what accommodation costs, these might be your transport costs. So we try to provide support in budgeting and financial planning really early on. And that's available all the way through as well, both through our own student support services and through the Marjant Student Union. I was talking to my nephew actually the other day because he's partway through university, and he does a lot of sport, so he can't actually work much during his time at uni. But he works a lot in the holidays, and he knows he has a target of money that he has to earn each holiday to then kind of get him through the next bit, which is hard work, but he thinks it's worthwhile because he wants to get a good degree and finish his course. And I'd also say to students, overall, the research does show that, gaining a degree does potentially give graduates access to higher lifetime earnings, down the road, down the line, depending on the role that they're going into. So there's all sorts of debate and discussion, isn't there, around, the value for money and the value of a degree and is it worth it? And I think there are different levels to this. I think there is absolutely value in terms of that broader development of character and development of self that we've already talked about, and that ability to develop a rounded person who then is actually going to contribute as a great citizen, contribute to the country, contribute to their community. But there is also that potential for higher earning and a different career path going forwards, and perhaps the ability to switch different careers as well at certain stages because of that experience of university. The upshot is good planning, being really aware of what the costs are and not being afraid to seek help and advice.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think this will be our last question.
Okay.
What legacy do you hope your institution leaves in shaping the next generation of leaders, not just skills, but kind? Yeah,
you're right. Yeah, it goes. I mean, this has been a bit of a thread all the way through, hasn't it? In terms of, I want my students to leave us with a real sense of purpose and feeling equipped and confident to make a difference for themselves, for their families, for communities. Most of our students do say they want to work somewhere where they're going to make a difference, which is absolutely fantastic. But you're right, as well as making a difference in terms of their academic degree and their skills and everything that they're taking, having good character, being able to make good decisions, being kind and caring, and curious as well is really important. One of our values, again, is incredibly important. And I hope that we model all of that across the university community, so that our students almost feel that's the default expectation. We expect you to be compassionate, kind, active, purposeful citizens wherever you end up living or working or and playing as well, in terms of other things that you might be involved in.
That's good. Thank you. I said semi question, semi final, as they say in the football, innit? Are you a football? Do you like watching football?
I'm not a big fan, but we're very plugged into football down here because of our links. Yeah.
Anyway, so okay, let me just put this one out there. How can students balance academic development, creativity, and compassion in today's fast world?
Okay. Academic development, creativity, and compassion.
Yeah, and personal development.
Yeah, I think this is something that, we can teach some of this, can't we, in terms of how we build things into the curriculum, which we try to do. But there's also something about providing opportunities for students, young people, or even older learners to actually take opportunities to find for themselves and practice some of this stuff, and to, you know, find for themselves the balance that they want to have in terms of how they operate, how they develop, how their character develops, because everyone is different. And I think, you know, I constantly try to remind people of this. We're not in a kind of what's the phrase? You know, when you're making biscuits, making cookies, we're not trying to make the same kind of same shaped cookie with a cookie cutter in terms of a Mahjong graduate. There will be core things that I would hope a Mahjong graduate, you know, would take out into the world. But then they need space to actually be their own people and put their own stamp on things as well.
Thank you so much, Professor. Shall I put this one about mentorship? Do you want me to quickly ask that before we wrap it up finally?
I don't know. Have we got time?
What role does mentorship play in shaping future leaders, and how can professor inspire students to lead with empathy?
Yeah, mentorship's really important. I mean, you know, I think you and I have talked about before, I'm sure we did, in terms of, you know, if you don't see people doing things that you relate to, then it's hard to imagine yourself in that position. So I've got a few women who I'm working with at the moment, very informally, who are, you know, looking to perhaps take the next step in their career ladder. And sometimes it's just a case of having a chat and talking through, you know, what might be getting in the way, what can you control, what can't you control, where else can we look for support, but also finding that kind of best fit, if you like, in terms of an organization or a team or a role that people are interested in, because it's kind of got to be a two-way thing, hasn't it? There's no point in shoehorning ourselves into something that is just really going to jar. So I personally try to spend a little bit of time when I can with women who are looking at trying to make that next step. And I hope that then encourages them to do the same with others. And then we create that nice virtuous cycle, don't we, of people supporting people who are supporting people to be the absolute best that they can. Because, you know, going back to kind of where we started, you know, we're trying to model a small part of the kingdom here on earth, aren't we? And, you know, the Lord wants us to be that, you know, bit of light that is enabling things to be the best they possibly can under very, very difficult circumstances before we see glory. So I think as a Christian, we have huge responsibility there in terms of that mentorship piece.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much. Just one final word from you to students, both the one preparing for university, those one in year 13 at the moment, and the one, you know, maybe at the age of rounding up their career in university, and they're looking at what am I going to get now I finish my degree. I'm graduating, even though I get 2-1, I get upper class, I get 2-2, whatever grade. So what advice have you got for them? And both the one about to graduate, and both the year 13 now, thinking of years I'm going to uni, you know, the excitement is always there. So what advice do you have for them?
Okay. So if you're thinking about university, and this is a good time of year actually, because, you know, prospective students will be writing their personal statements and making applications and all this sort of thing. I think, and it's really hard, you know, it's one of the biggest decisions to ever make. You're making a decision to go and study a subject for at least 3 years, maybe 4 years, possibly in a place that you've never been to before, that you don't know a lot about. So I think, you know, absolutely visit places that you're thinking of, if at all possible, and ask questions. Talk to students who are already there. And be prepared to think a little bit outside the box. I know with one of my daughters, she thought she was going to go to university to do one subject, and actually partway through the process realized that she wanted to do something else. And that was okay to do that. So don't feel trapped into a kind of decision that you think, oh, well, that's made now and I'm kind of stuck in it. Things can still change even over the coming year. And if you don't quite get your grades, that's okay as well. There are always options. So I think the key thing is to not panic, to not feel trapped, and to stay open-minded. So that's for people who are kind of thinking about going to uni. For people who've kind of come through university and are perhaps at the stage where they're maybe in their final year or looking to graduate, I would say be ambitious for yourself, aim high. But also, if you need to take a little bit of time out to reflect and to do something different, particularly if you've had you've been at it for 3 or 4 years, you've studied hard, you've probably been working alongside as well, then it's okay to take a bit of time out. You don't have to go straight into that big job that you might be looking at. Or maybe that big job is already lined up. Be ambitious, be confident, and be yourself. Because I think that there's a danger sometimes that we perhaps step into a new opportunity and the world then starts to mold us, which will happen. But be confident in yourself and in your own development, because that's also about what you gain from being at university. And enjoy, have fun and enjoy. That's got to be the main thing, hasn't it?
Enjoy yourself. Pat yourself at the back. That I've really done well. 4 years is not a joke. Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you for your time this morning. And then to all our audience, I just want to use this closing remark as well to round up what Professor Claire has been saying since we began the recording or this talk show. Thank you for sharing your insights, Professor. And as we navigate the complexity of modern education, your visions remind me that true leadership begins with empathy, courage, and a commitment to others. May our universities to be not just place of learning, but incubator of hope, healings, and transformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And that is that from us, our viewer, and I hope our discussion we have an impact in your life and reflect. And for those struggling or still making decision to go into university, don't worry, just go for it. Close your eyes and go for it. Tell yourself, I can do it. You can do it. And for those thinking about masters or PhD, can I do it? You can do it. Go for it. Thank you. And that is that from us now.